Anchorage, Alaska, epitomizes a striking juxtaposition, serving as a flawless sanctuary that often evokes memories of a bygone era in the 1900s. Anchorage sprawls across 176 square miles of untamed land, enveloped by wildlife, nature, and wilderness, nestled deep within the forests. On June 13, 1983, the serene streets of 6th Avenue in Anchorage were pierced by terror as 17-year-old Cindy Paulson was discovered sprinting down the lane, barefoot and shackled, crying out for assistance. A compassionate driver passing by offered Cindy a ride to safety, returning her to the station. The following day, Anchorage awoke to the shocking revelation that they had unknowingly sheltered Alaska's most infamous serial killer for the past 13 years. Robert Christian Hansen, born on February 15, 1939, in Esterville, Iowa, appeared to be plagued by various mental afflictions stemming from his tumultuous upbringing. Hansen, plagued by shyness and frailty, was singled out as a target due to his stammering caused by severe acne and permanent scarring. His distorted body image led him to describe himself as a gigantic pimple. Unable to fit into societal standards of masculinity and rejected by the attractive girls in school, Hansen harbored deep-seated animosity towards them, nurturing fantasies of vindictive retribution. His father, a strict Danish immigrant who owned a modest bakery in the heart of the city, imposed harsh discipline on Hansen, resulting in a challenging childhood. Hansen toiled long hours in the family bakery from a tender age. Despite being naturally left-handed, his authoritarian father compelled him to use his right hand, leading to a lifelong stutter. Alienated by both his family and peers, Hansen exhibited early signs of despondency. As a social pariah, he sought solace in solitude, eventually immersing himself in the pursuit of big game hunting, channeling his anger and revenge fantasies into stalking animals. In 1957, at the age of 18, Robert Hansen enlisted in the U.S. Army Reserve to forge his own path. After completing his service in the reserves, he took on the role of an assistant drill instructor in Pocahontas, Iowa. It was during this time that he crossed paths with a young woman whom he eventually married. Despite the fresh start that life had offered him, his deep-seated thirst for violence, a result of the mistreatment he had endured from society, soon consumed him. At the age of 21 in 1960, he managed to persuade a young employee at a bakery to assist him in setting fire to a school bus garage. When the young accomplice confessed to the crime, he was apprehended and arrested. This turn of events deeply angered his wife, leading her to file for divorce, leaving him alone and incarcerated. Although his initial 3-year sentence for arson was reduced to just 20 months, he found himself in trouble with the law again, this time for petty theft. In 1967, he married another resident of Pocahontas, and together they relocated to Anchorage, Alaska, where he established his own successful bakery. Hansen's newfound prosperity allowed him to pursue his passion for hunting and flying. He earned a reputation as an avid outdoorsman, skillfully stalking and capturing Dall sheep, wolves, and bears, using various weapons. Settling into a peaceful routine, he and his wife started a family and became respected members of their small community. However, unbeknownst to the townspeople, Hansen's sinister side thrived in the Alaskan wilderness. Throughout the 70s and early 80s, he targeted numerous workers and exotic dancers, kidnapping them only to release them later in the unforgiving woods. Unfortunately, during this time, society lagged far behind in terms of protecting women's rights. Legal professionals often avoided cases involving workers and assault victims due to the complexities they presented. In 1972, Hansen was arrested twice, once for attempting to assault a housewife and again for assaulting a sex worker. Despite being charged with lesser offenses, he spent less than 6 months in custody. In 1976, he was once again apprehended, this time for shoplifting a chainsaw. Having been convicted of larceny, he was handed down a sentence of 5 years behind bars. However, to the astonishment of many, the verdict was overturned on appeal, as the esteemed Alaska Supreme Court deemed the punishment excessively severe. Little did the local authorities know this marked the beginning of his murderous rampage, which commenced in 1973. It seemed that his ability to evade justice after his initial crimes had emboldened him to unleash his sinister desires. The activities that were visible to the public eye merely scratched the surface of his malevolent persona. It wasn't until 1983, over a decade after he had settled in Anchorage, that the horrifying truth about Alaska's butcher-baker, Robert Hansen, was unveiled. On a fateful day, June 13th, 1983, Cindy Paulson found herself ensnared in Hansen's web of terror. Lured by the promise of a substantial sum of $200 in exchange for intimate relations, she reluctantly entered his vehicle. However, her world quickly turned into a nightmare as she found herself staring down the barrel of a gun. Hansen then whisked her away to his lair in Muldoon, subjecting her to repeated and brutal physical assaults as his twisted fantasies spiraled out of control. In a desperate bid to extend his reign of terror, he even attempted to transport her by plane to his secluded cabin in the Matanuska-Susitna Valley, located approximately 35 miles north of Anchorage. Yet, fate intervened when Cindy managed to free one of her hands and make a daring escape just as the aircraft was preparing for takeoff. Displaying remarkable presence of mind, she strategically left behind a shoe as a crucial piece of evidence. The description she provided of her abductor aligned perfectly with Robert Hansen's profile. Cindy also provided valuable information about his stutter and distinctive characteristics of the plane, aiding the ongoing investigation. However, despite these compelling details, the authorities hesitated to apprehend Hansen. Even though he had a history of run-ins with the law, the local community held the affable baker in high regard. Hansen, in his defense, claimed that Cindy had orchestrated the entire ordeal as revenge for his refusal to meet her exorbitant demands. He even presented an alibi provided by a friend, leading to his release. Meanwhile, the Alaska State Troopers grew increasingly apprehensive about the elusive serial killer still at large. In the year 1980, a group of diligent construction workers, toiling away near the illustrious Eklutna Road, stumbled upon a ghastly sight. They uncovered the decomposed remains of a woman, tragically slain in the year prior in 1979. The true identity of this unfortunate soul remained shrouded in mystery, leaving the authorities no choice but to christen her as Eklutna Annie. The police, tasked with unraveling this enigma, were met with another chilling discovery later that same year. The lifeless body of Joanna Messina was unearthed in a gravel pit near Seward, prompting the establishment of a specialized task force to delve into these heinous crimes. As the days passed, the Matanuska-Susitna Valley became a haunting backdrop for a series of macabre events. The lifeless forms of more victims emerged, accompanied by the presence of 2.23 shell casings ominously left behind. It was during this time that Hansen, a man of interest, found himself under the scrutinizing gaze of law enforcement. However, mere suspicion alone did not grant the officers the authority to take immediate action. They yearned for irrefutable evidence that would directly link him to these unspeakable acts. Thus, the investigation remained open, with each passing day bringing forth new bodies, further entangling the complex web of circumstances. In the face of such perplexity, the retired luminary of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Agent John Douglas, was summoned. A pioneer in the realm of criminal profiling, Douglas possessed an unparalleled ability to construct a psychological profile of the perpetrator. Through his astute analysis, he discerned the killer's motives and the chilling manner in which he executed his sinister deeds. it was revealed that Robert Hansen, the prime suspect, had a troubling history marred by severe depression and episodes of borderline schizophrenia. Diagnosed with an infantile personality, Hansen harbored an obsessive desire to exact revenge upon those he believed had wronged him. The authorities, burdened by the gravity of the situation, obtained a warrant to search Hansen's plane, car, and abode. The weight of the truth was almost too much for the legal officers to bear. Hansen, a prominent figure in the community, had garnered a reputation as a skilled bow hunter, his prowess renowned throughout the town. The walls of his den were adorned with trophies from his hunting escapades, showcasing his mastery over the art. However, the esteemed gentleman also possessed a fascination for acquiring mementos from a different kind of conquest. His method involved luring unsuspecting women into his luxurious automobile, only to subject them to the terror of his gun-wielding coercion. Once under his control, he would subject them to unspeakable acts of violence before whisking them away to a secluded corner of the Alaskan wilderness, where he would hunt them down like mere beasts. These unfortunate souls were left chained to their helplessness, their pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. While many of these unfortunate victims succumbed without resistance, those who dared to fight back met a gruesome fate at the hands of Alaska's most chilling serial killer. In the vast expanse of the untamed wilderness, his preferred hunting ground lay along the majestic Knik River. Robert Hansen would momentarily release his prey, giving them a fleeting glimmer of hope for escape. As they desperately fled for their lives, he would leisurely pursue them, relishing in the thrill of the chase. Armed with a hunting knife and a .223 caliber Ruger Mini 14 rifle, he would relentlessly pursue his quarry for hours and sometimes even days until he finally cornered them, ending their lives with a single calculated shot. It was a macabre game, reminiscent of a twisted hunting expedition. During the investigation of the butcher baker's home, law enforcement stumbled upon an aviation map cunningly concealed within the headboard of his opulent bed. This map was adorned with minuscule X's, each representing a site where he had committed his heinous acts and buried his victims. Astonishingly, the map revealed a total of 24 X's, far surpassing the 3 known to the authorities at that time. Detective Douglas, well versed in the mind of a killer, understood that this man would undoubtedly possess a morbid fascination for preserving trophies from his victims. True to his intuition, the police discovered a trove of jewelry in Hansen's basement, among which lay a necklace belonging to one of his unfortunate victims. Confronted with the overwhelming evidence, Hansen finally succumbed to the weight of his guilt in 1984. In a chilling confession, he admitted to the murder of 17 women and the assault of an additional 30 over a span of 12 harrowing years, from 1971 to 1983. In the wake of that fateful year, 1984, the gavel of justice resounded with a resolute decree. Robert Hansen, a man steeped in darkness, was condemned to a staggering sentence of 461 years, a lifetime behind bars with no glimmer of hope for parole. The confines of his existence were etched within the walls of the Spring Creek Correctional Center, nestled in the serene embrace of Seward, Alaska. Alaska's butcher baker, as he came to be known, had struck terror into the hearts of many. Yet, the scales of justice could only account for a fraction of his heinous acts. The plea bargain, a mere whisper of justice, acknowledged his guilt in the merciless slaying of 4 innocent souls, while he had confessed to extinguishing the lives of 17. Whispers in the shadows hinted at a chilling truth, suggesting that the number of his victims surpassed 20, their identities forever shrouded in mystery. In a desperate bid to secure a glimmer of freedom, Hansen struck a deal with the authorities. In exchange for a reduced sentence that would grant him a chance at parole, he offered a macabre trade. The details of his victims' final moments and the resting places of their mortal remains were to be unveiled. The police, hungry for closure and resolution, eagerly sought the hidden knowledge that lay within Hansen's twisted mind. With a heavy heart, Robert Hansen embarked on a haunting journey, guiding the authorities to the locations where he had orchestrated his gruesome acts. Each victim had been meticulously marked on his sinister kill map, a chilling testament to his malevolence. Yet, despite his cooperation, the whereabouts of 5 unfortunate souls remained elusive, forever lost in the abyss of his secrets. Hansen, in his final act of defiance, carried their hidden graves to his own grave. Time, relentless in its march, eventually caught up with the butcher-baker. In the year 2014, within the confines of his correctional center, Robert Hansen breathed his last breath. At age 75, he departed this world, taking with him the weight of his sins and the knowledge of those lost souls who would forever remain nameless. Julia Simmons resided in the outskirts of Portland, Oregon, in a 3-bedroom house with Stephen Nichols, a divorced day trader. Their paths crossed when Julia was searching for a rental place online, and she found Stephen to be charming and pleasant. As they cohabited, Stephen had the opportunity to meet Julia's 20-year-old daughter, Rhonda. Despite the 10-year age gap, Stephen found Rhonda to be the epitome of beauty. Her captivating appearance was complemented by an extraordinary personality. To Stephen's surprise, Rhonda reciprocated his interest, leading them to embark on a romantic relationship. Over time, their bond deepened, prompting the decision to live together. Consequently, Rhonda relocated to Stephen's condominium. Throughout their courtship, Stephen formed a strong connection with Rhonda's family. Despite their enduring commitment, Stephen and Rhonda never tied the knot, leaving Rhonda to ponder the possibilities of marriage. Her friends believed she held on to hope for this union. Stephen assured her that they would marry according to his timeline, specifically in the summer of 2009. However, they did have a daughter together, and motherhood became the most fulfilling aspect of Rhonda's life. Her daughter became the center of her universe, and Rhonda cherished every precious moment spent with her. She embraced the role of being a mother wholeheartedly. While Rhonda relished her time as a mother, she also yearned to reignite her modeling career. Stephen claimed that after giving birth, Rhonda struggled with her weight and felt unattractive. In an effort to shed the extra pounds, they made a commitment to embark on a journey of hiking Oregon's 25 best trails together. Despite the challenges of parenthood, Stephen expressed satisfaction with the state of their relationship, highlighting the rarity of their disagreements. He was convinced that their bond had grown stronger than ever before. However, Rhonda's friends had a different account to share. They disclosed that Rhonda had confided in them about Stephen's abusive behavior. Rhonda had even taken pictures of her bruised back, using a mirror to document the aftermath of a fight with Stephen. On March 16, 2009, Stephen and 23-year-old Rhonda went on a hike along the Eagle Creek Trail. While making their way down the trail, Rhonda snapped a photo of Stephen using her cell phone. Prior to their hike, Rhonda jokingly texted her mother saying, "He's either going to propose or push me off a cliff." The weather was delightful as they continued their stroll, but Stephen later claimed that Rhonda started behaving oddly. According to Stephen, Rhonda asked him what he would do if something were to happen to her and if he would take care of their daughter. He replied, "Of course." As the weather took a turn for the worse, Stephen informed Rhonda that it was time to head back. However, instead of turning around, Stephen alleged that Rhonda wrapped a towel around her shoulders, proclaimed herself as Supergirl, and began running down the narrow, slippery path. Stephen stated that he witnessed Rhonda slip and fall over the edge of the Eagle Creek Trail, plummeting approximately 150 feet. After Rhonda's fall, Stephen claimed that he descended to the ravine where she had landed because he couldn't get a cell signal and cradled her lifeless body. He attempted to call 911, but he had no service, leaving him with no choice but to leave her behind. According to Stephen, he walked back to the trailhead where he finally managed to contact emergency services. Later that day, Rescue workers recovered Rhonda's body. Rhonda's family attested that Stephen displayed no emotion during her memorial service. However, Stephen contradicted this claim and insisted that he cried incessantly. He explained that when he becomes extremely sad, he withdraws from others and prefers solitude. Shortly after Rhonda passed away, Stephen gathered their belongings and relocated with their daughter to the other side of Oregon, near his own family. This sudden move raised suspicions among Rhonda's family, who began to question what had transpired between Stephen and Rhonda leading up to her death. In 2006, Stephen made a significant decision to move from the United States to China, marking the start of a new chapter in his life. Accompanied by his young daughter, Stephen chose to settle in Wuxi, a city situated approximately 75 miles outside of Shanghai. Having previously lived in China during his first marriage, Stephen had developed a deep affection for the country and its people. While residing in China, Stephen secured a job teaching English to Chinese business professionals. His daughter quickly adapted to life in China and became fluent in Mandarin within just 2 months of their relocation. Both Stephen and his daughter thrived in their new environment. During their time in China, Stephen encountered a woman named Landy Yin Yan, with whom he fell deeply in love. Landy and his daughter formed a strong bond, with Landy assuming the role of a mother figure. Stephen greatly appreciated Landy's willingness to embrace her parental role towards his daughter. After a year of dating, Stephen decided to take their relationship to the next level by proposing to Landy. To his joy, she accepted his proposal. In February 2015, Stephen and his daughter returned to the United States to prepare for their upcoming wedding. They planned to have 2 ceremonies, one in America and one in China, to accommodate both of their families and friends. Stephen and his daughter arrived in the United States a day before his fiancée. However, as they disembarked the plane in San Francisco to catch their connecting flight to Oregon, an officer approached Stephen and informed him that there was an issue with his bag, resulting in his detainment. Little did he know that this encounter would set in motion a series of events that would forever alter his life. Minutes later, law enforcement arrived and separated Stephen from his daughter. Unbeknownst to him, during his time in China, detectives had been diligently investigating his girlfriend, Rhonda's death. Suspicious circumstances surrounding Rhonda's fall from Eagle Creek led them to continue the investigation, ultimately concluding that Stephen was responsible for her death. Rhonda's mother played a crucial role in keeping the investigation active, constantly reaching out to the detectives for updates. Stephen was arrested at the airport for Rhonda's murder and extradited to Oregon. Upon his arrest, Stephen expressed disbelief, hoping it was all a dream and that he would wake up in China with Landy by his side. However, the reality of the situation soon set in. Initially set at $2 million, Stephen's bail was later reduced to $250,000, which his attorney managed to secure. He was then released with an ankle monitor, awaiting trial after spending 14 months behind bars. The news of Stephen's arrest brought a sense of relief and closure to Rhonda's family, who had been grieving her loss for years. Rhonda's mother, in particular, was overwhelmed with emotion upon hearing the news and broke down in tears. Following his arrest, Stephen's legal team visited the Eagle Creek Trail to conduct experiments in an effort to prove to the court that Rhonda's fall was accidental and not the result of foul play. Stephen's defense attorney highlighted the popularity of the trail in the Columbia River Gorge due to its scenic beauty. During one of Stephen's initial court appearances, the medical examiner who conducted Rhonda's autopsy following her fall from Eagle Creek determined that all of Rhonda's injuries were located below her waist. This finding played a crucial role in Stephen's defense strategy, allowing them to argue that Rhonda had taken her own life. The defense team contended that Rhonda's broken pelvis was caused by the impact of hitting the ground, and that evidence suggested she fell feet first, rather than head over heels as if she had been pushed. Along with presenting evidence related to Rhonda's injuries, The defense team aimed to introduce notes from her therapy sessions as evidence. These notes indicated that Rhonda was experiencing depression but had never voiced any intentions of self-harm. Moreover, Rhonda herself had described her relationship with Stephen as devoid of love. The defense team argued that Rhonda's depression and her description of the relationship were signs that she had made the decision to end her own life. By presenting this information, they sought to raise doubts about the prosecution's claim that Stephen had pushed Rhonda, resulting in the fatal injuries. Stephen later alleged that Rhonda had a history of depression and suicide attempts prior to their relationship. However, Rhonda's family refuted these claims and accused Stephen of fabricating stories. They asserted that Stephen was deflecting blame onto Rhonda for her own death, as they believed he was responsible for her demise. According to Stephen, Rhonda had struggled with substance abuse since the age of 12, experimenting with various drugs. Nevertheless, the medical examiner's report only revealed minimal traces of marijuana, and the prescription medication Rhonda was taking for anxiety and depression related to postpartum issues. The preliminary hearings uncovered disturbing evidence regarding Stephen's involvement in the case. Stephen's involvement in a romantic relationship with Melanie, Rhonda's 16-year-old sister, was recently brought to light. This revelation caused quite a stir, considering the significant age difference between Stephen, who was in his 30s, and Melanie, who was still a minor. The prosecution argued that Stephen's inappropriate relationship with Melanie could potentially serve as a motive for Rhonda's murder. Rhonda had discovered Stephen's deceitful actions, which created tension and a possible motive for her murder. Following his arrest for Rhonda's murder, Stephen was charged with 2 counts of third-degree sexual assault and 3 counts of third-degree sodomy related to his relationship with Melanie Casto, Rhonda's sister, and his girlfriend. While awaiting trial for Rhonda's murder in 2005, Stephen pleaded guilty to 2 counts of sexual abuse. In his statement, Stephen admitted to having sexual intercourse with Melanie twice. However, he later claimed that he was coerced into confessing and that his admission was false. Stephen explained that he only pleaded guilty because it would allow him to fight for custody of his daughter. He expressed desperation and a strong desire to be reunited with his child. On the other hand, the prosecution argued that Stephen and Melanie's relationship had lasted for over 4 years. Eventually, Stephen admitted to having a sexual relationship with Rhonda's teenage sister. The prosecution presented a text message from Rhonda to Melanie, which revealed Rhonda's disdain for Stephen and accused him of using Melanie to hurt her. Rhonda's mother confirmed that Rhonda was aware of Stephen's attempts to drive a wedge between her and Melanie. She asserted that Rhonda loved her younger sister and wanted to mend their relationship. According to the state, the relationship between Rhonda and Stephen was far from ideal, contrary to Stephen's claims. The court was presented with additional evidence that shed light on Stephen's troubled sexual history. It was revealed that shortly after Rhonda, the mother of his daughter, passed away, Stephen was arrested and faced charges of sexual abuse involving a 13-year-old girl. Stephen vehemently denied these allegations, asserting his innocence. However, he later admitted to sending a sexually suggestive text message and an inappropriate picture to the victim, acknowledging the wrongful nature of his actions. Consequently, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of sexual harassment. During one of Stephen's preliminary hearings, the state submitted photographs taken by Rhonda, which documented her bruised back. Additionally, Rhonda's best friend testified that she had witnessed several fights between Rhonda and Stephen while on the phone with her, as their arguments could be heard in the background. Furthermore, Stephen's ex-wife provided testimony, alleging that he had attempted to suffocate her and throw her off the balcony of their 4th-floor apartment in November 2003. However, Stephen was not charged with any crime in relation to this incident and denied the accusations. Rhonda's family firmly believes that Stephen, her boyfriend, was responsible for her untimely demise. They suspect that he murdered her to collect the life insurance policy he had taken out on her, which he had recently increased. Rhonda's mother expressed her concerns, pointing out that Stephen had suffered significant financial losses through day trading the previous year and was not financially stable. Moreover, everyone who knew Rhonda can attest to her deep love for her 9-month-old daughter, making it highly unlikely that she would have taken her own life by jumping from Eagle Creek. In May 2017, Rhonda's family received a shocking and horrifying revelation. The state had organized a meeting with the defense and reached an agreement. Stephen, the accused, pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide. Although the state believed he had committed murder, they acknowledged the weak case against him due to the lack of physical evidence proving his involvement in pushing her from the trail at Eagle Creek. Stephen received credit for the time he had already served while awaiting trial, but he was required to remain on parole for 3 years. After having his ankle monitor removed, he was released from custody. However, Rhonda's family and friends strongly believed that Stephen accepting a plea deal did not serve justice. They firmly believed that he should have faced more severe consequences for his actions. During Stephen's sentencing hearing, Rhonda's sister delivered an impactful statement expressing her anger and frustration towards him. She made it clear that he had not only destroyed her entire family, but also caused immense pain and sorrow. Rhonda's mother also expressed her confusion and frustration, unable to comprehend how Stephen could have taken her daughter away, leaving their family shattered. Stephen claimed that he did not push Rhonda and accepted the deal because time was running out for him to regain custody of his daughter. He stated that he was willing to face the consequences of his actions for the sake of his child. However, despite Stephen's claims, Rhonda's family and friends remained unconvinced. In a 2018 interview, Stephen made a startling allegation regarding Rhonda's fate. He claimed that on the day of her fatal fall, she was still alive when he hiked down Eagle Creek Trail and discovered her. The interviewer then questioned Stephen about whether he had put Rhonda out of her misery that day. Stephen posed a hypothetical question to the interviewer, asking if it would be considered murder if one were to shoot their war buddy out of compassion for their suffering. He contended that while such an act could be seen as a justifiable homicide, it would still be classified as a homicide. Although Stephen never explicitly confessed to causing harm to Rhonda, his remarks hinted at the possibility of his involvement in her demise. In 2017, Rhonda's mother sought Social Security survivor benefits for Rhonda's infant daughter. She claimed that her granddaughter resided with her and pledged to utilize the benefits solely for the child's well-being. However, the state alleged that from April 2010 to December 2014, when Rhonda's mother asserted that the young girl lived with her, she had actually been residing with her father, Stephen. Consequently, the state pressed charges against Rhonda's mother for embezzling government funds amounting to nearly $40,000 over a span of 5 years. Rhonda's mother's defense attorneys argued that her actions were motivated by her determination to prevent Stephen from gaining custody of their daughter and taking advantage of the $1 million life insurance policy he had on Rhonda's life. The defense contended that she was driven by her desire to protect her granddaughter and ensure that she was not exploited. They also highlighted her history of depression, which worsened after her daughter's death, leading her to rely on marijuana as a form of self-medication. According to the defense team, the drug served as a crutch, clouding her judgment and impairing her ability to think clearly. The judge ultimately sentenced Rhonda's mother, who was 53 years old at the time, to 1 month in a halfway house and 3 years of probation after she pleaded guilty to the theft of government funds. In addition to the jail time and probation, she was ordered to repay the stolen benefits totaling $39,124. Since October 2015, Rhonda and Stephen's daughter had been in foster care under the custody of the Department of Human Services. This decision was made after Stephen pleaded guilty to sexual abuse involving a 13-year-old girl, resulting in the termination of his parental rights by the Oregon court. However, Stephen appealed this ruling.